Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you the most OP Vex Spectre build in Borderlands 4. Now this is a bit of an unconventional build, but it is plenty strong because with the right setups you can do some crazy stuff here because it actually counts as using a separate gun from yourself. So you actually can use some of the weapons that would normally take yourself out and you can just destroy bosses with this without even hurting your own health bar. So there's a lot of fun to have with this build because it's so silly in how it works, and there's lots of weapons that work great. Where this becomes crazy is because our Spectre is actually going to copy the gun that we're currently using, so the damage potential can be crazy when we're using specific setups, and I'll be breaking down all of that in this video. So even something like an assault rifle here that's nothing super nuts is actually melting bosses pretty quickly. A brief overview of this build. So we're going to be using the Heirloom Capstone, which allows the Spectre to copy the gun that we currently have in hand, and this will remove the gun whenever you spawn a new one, so you can actually keep shuffling this around. And we're going to use some of the passes that typically don't get picked on this build for the blue skill tree, with things like Keen Suffering, which lets our status effect damage gain a chance to critically hit. This actually pairs very well because we can then apply Bleed, which is a status effect, and Bleed can scale pretty crazy with the amount of damage if we use this. It's an interesting combination. I also like being able to take the shot to go. This is a pretty interesting one because while referencing Chaperone's song, you can also switch between your weapons really quickly and get a full magazine back immediately. So if we're out of ammo, we can actually swap back and get it immediately back. It also lets us use some other weapons like TK's Wave, which is normally a lot harder to hit, but our Spectres have incredible aim. So starting off at level 1, the Cold Iron is really good because this just gives us a flat out 15% increase to our gun damage, but our minions get a 30% increase to their gun damage, so this makes them a little bit better than us after taking this. Sanguine Friends here is also, or Fiends is also really good because this will allow you to regenerate your health. If you're mobbing, this is a better choice, but I found that this is obviously a lot better. Getting gun damage is massive as we can apply some extra benefits to other things. Now, once we get down here, I like the Curse Blade, but I don't feel like it fits on this build, so you can either go with the Grave Assault. Whenever we take out enemies, we get a faster fire rate, or you can go back and take the Sanguine Friends, which allows you to actually have your summons up a little bit more. Personal preference if you want more damage or survivability. Now, once we get down here, I like to take the Grave Fiends here. This is just going to increase the amount of damage that we deal after we take out an enemy by 12.5% with 3 stacks. So this is a really good mob we want. Typically during bosses, there will be enemies that help us keep this up as well. Once we get down here, you can actually, I guess the first augment you'd want to take is the Gas Blaster, which allows you to do damage whenever you spawn in the Spectres. I like the Coven here because this, whenever you spawn in a Reaper, will give them health regeneration. So you can use 1 Reaper and 2 Spectres with this and go with Coven. But once we get down here, Wither is really nice. So this, whenever we summon in our Spectre, it'll cast Wither on an enemy, which deals status effect damage over time, which we'll later be able to boost up even further, and increase damage taken by 30%. So this is a really nice buff because, yeah, this can stack once per elemental type. It becomes pretty crazy, especially whenever we take the Prismatic Ichor here. So now this one does seem somewhat to be bugged at times. I'm not sure why, but it does have a cooldown 2 seconds, so keep in mind that. Vex our minions apply a status effect, it'll apply another random status effect. So some people say it's bugged. I have had it to trigger, and other times it does seem to be a bit weird. The other one is the Blade Attunement here. If you like to use corrosive weapons, this is good because whenever you take out an enemy, it's going to give you that, it gives a little summon that flies around, deals damage in an area of effect. The damage is not good, I'll be honest. So Prismatic Ichor, but you can go with kind of either way. Now, once we get down to here, there's a few good options. I really like the Keen Suffering. This is going to give you the biggest damage boost. So status effect damage gains a chance to critically hit. So your burns, your shocks, we want to get shock procs if at all possible. And this is a good one to take later on once we get to the Incarnate, because this will actually apply to our Bleed as well. I like to take one of the Gaster Bait here. So whenever we dodge, we leave behind a Spectre in our place, and we become invisible until our next gunshot that hits an enemy. This is a pretty useful one just to take a single pass of it. I don't like to take any more than that. It just gives you another Spectre to use. Now, the Shot to Go, this is dependent on if you like it or not. So this allows you to swap between your weapons and you'll get your ammunition refilled. This actually pairs well. There's a class mod that increases your ability to stay within your attunement for a 35% longer. So when you swap your guns, you can actually keep Bleed from the green skill tree whenever you're in a different elemental damage type. So you can actually kind of cycle between these. It becomes really fun. I do have a class mode that increases the weapon equip speed by 100%, which works perfectly here. I like it personally, but otherwise the Keen Suffering is going to be a really good choice. We can go 4 stacks or take 5 if you don't want Gaster Bait. This takes us down to Heirloom. So this allows our Spectres to gain a copy of our gun, and only one Spectre can have a copy gun at a time. So swap them whenever, because they will stop using it after a little bit of time. So whenever you spawn in your Spectre, 10 seconds later, you're going to spawn in your next one. And if you really like to go around the Blade Attunement and Corrosive, you can take this, but I found that Corrosive is only really good against robots, and there's a number of them in the game, but for farming, not so much a big deal. I also have this from a class mod, which is nice, the Ancient, right? So minion damage increases 1% per stack. You can have up to 40% extra minion damage, which is really nice, depending on how long you have your minions out. This is just a class mod. From levels 25 onwards, I'd actually recommend going from the blue skill tree into the green skill tree and taking Leeching Attunement. This requires you to use a weapon without any elemental damage type. However, you do get 10% life steal, which will basically keep you alive for a very long time. And you get increased reload speed with those guns. The attunement duration is 6 seconds, so you can swap to another elemental damage type and keep these benefits. After that, we're going to take Bloodletter. Gun and skill critical hits have a chance to apply bleed, causing kinetic status effect damage over time. Bleed is affected by status application chance and is considered itself a status effect, which does mean that we can critically hit. So Keen Suffering can boost up our bleed damage quite a bit. And this is 30% of the gun damage per second, 50% chance of this happening. You get 20 stacks of bleed built up. It shreds bosses. Now we're also going to take the material components, which increase our kinetic damage and kinetic status effect damage. Just a flat out boost to overall DPS. Now, at this point, I actually like to take 3 points in the Hasty Fiends. The reason being, damage reduction of 20% on both us and our minions is just nice, especially if you're using specific shields. Everyone can benefit from movement speed as well. So if you're playing any type of playstyle, whatever guns you like, it's better to move faster. So I like taking this. You don't have to. We can come back in here and it is nice to take the recurrence. So whenever we deal gun damage or melee damage, we get a stack of recurrence, which increases our gun damage even further. And this will actually apply to our minions. So and us, we get a big boost to our overall damage. I like to take the final points in either this. You can go with the shot to go again if you like it. 45% ammo refilled. You swap your gun twice. You have full ammo basically. And then we can put our last points in the recurrence. And then Burning Attunement's nice with the reverberations. I have a different build to focus on that. You can check that out if you want. I'll have it linked in the description. But yeah, we want to roll with this. As for class mods, the Illusionist is a nice one. This allows your Reapers and Spectres to be spawned in as badasses, which will give them additional health and damage dealt. And this will happen every 90 seconds. However, you can get random. As long as you get really good RNG, you can get a few ones back to back. This also makes it so your phase clones' health will reduce 33% slower, so you can keep them on the battlefield a lot longer. And this one also gives a flat out boost to our fire rate. And as you saw there, we got the +5 skill points into our Ancient Rites, giving us a +40% damage on our minions, which is actually a pretty nice roll there. Now, the Teen Witch also works really well. You can roll with the Teen Witch to give yourself 10% life steal on all damage types, and then it'll apply to your shields, and you'll get over shield as well. This is honestly just one of the best ones. It's good. Skill critical hit chance is all right. Roll too, depending on what you're able to get from your class perks. For example, this one gives 3 stacks of corporeal, so Vex and minions gain increased maximum overshield duration and capacity. And then we also can take here the Grave Thirst, which will give you lifesteal for a duration. So you can actually get some pretty nice synergies here if you're using the Teen Witch class mod. This the Electric Avatar here gives you the Attunement skill duration increase time. So you can actually have about like 8 to 9 seconds of bleed on your weapon. And then you can swap between weapons. You'll get different attunements. This will also buff up your minion. So if you really want to swap around often, this is a really good way to go. And my favorite class mod is the Undead Eye. This is whenever you get a sniper rifle kill, you get a bloodshot, which will then add your full health bar onto your next sniper shot. And then you can use the Timekeeper's New Shield to give massive health. This also gives you a +40% kinetic damage and +45% sniper rifle damage on this roll. Really good roll. However, this gets even crazier when you take into account the Bod Shotgun counts as this. So the Undead Eye plus the Bod Shotgun is crazy. However, I personally like to go with the Teen Witch here, especially this one that gives the overshield. Now for shields, the Watts for Dinner is nice because this will give you a bonus 25% shock damage and an overshield. And this one also is the Siphon that will give you the overshield as well. It's one of the best shields in the game. I really enjoy it. Cinder Shelly's great if you want to be annoyed with its voice. And also it gives you really big defenses plus 50% damage reduction. Protein Cell is nice too, so you can slam down on the ground, get extra boosts to shock damage. And if you're not using the class mod that gives you overshield and heals to your shield, this will actually let you just heal your health bar because every attack goes through your shield. So this can be really good for a flat out 40% boost to your damage. If you're going to go with the Undead Eye, you can roll with the Timekeeper's New Shield to give you even further health. And then we get total of 53% damage reduction, which is great. My personal preference, though, is the Watts for Dinner, though. Even the Super Soldier fits in nicely on this. And the Heavyweight if you want to do a little extra melee in this build, because you can actually do a bit of melee. The Onion Shield is another nice one, too, because this will give you immunity to damage for 2 seconds. Whenever you damage yourself with the Kickballer, it doesn't actually apply this, but Vex's minions can actually do that, and we're safe. But yeah, I really like the Watts for Dinner, but you can go with the Onion too for a bit survivability. And next we got the Enhancement here. The Jacob's License ones are fantastic. This one also comes with a gun equip speed increased by 100%. If you can find that roll, it's normally not that great, but it fits on this particular build really nicely because you can do that quick swap and then get full ammunition back immediately. It's pretty crazy, the combination. And then also on top of this, I like to get the bounce pass for the Jacob's License accessory because this gives you crazy damage. Your minion will get a bunch of actually critical hits too and bounce them around to multiple enemies. This is obviously really good with the critical hit knife, which is going to be getting nerfed in some capacity, but I do think it will still fit perfectly on here. There's going to be buffs to some of the other grenades, like the Slippy is going to be a good one. If you can get one with the Life Steal too, I really like that. The waterfall is also quite nice. The blind box being my favorite though. These are random drop, unfortunately. Now, as for, I guess, grenades, you can use those ones mentioned. And the Repkit best choice is a triple bypass with the now with caffeine specialization. This will give our minions back even quicker so we can summon in our specters. If you can find one with a roll for amped damage, it's going to be even better. Now for weapons, the kickballer I don't normally like using anymore. However, it does fit really nicely here because the damage from this is not going to hurt you, which is really funny actually. It's best to find with, you have to find the Jacob's License accessory. That's going to be the best way to do it because if you can get a critical hit, this is going to bounce around to multiple enemies. And we do have a pretty good critical hit chance from this, and especially from our class mods as well. So that becomes absolutely nuts as you saw at the start of this video. The Stray is another really good one because it comes with the Jacob's roll, and you can also get a Ripper one, so your minion can actually shoot it for quite a bit of time. And the damage output's really nice. You can just run around. It gives you bleed. You can just aim it right at the bosses. You don't even have to aim it. It'll home in on the enemies. I also really like the TK's Wave here. This typically isn't a super amazing weapon because it's hard to hit, but your Spectre will actually hit a lot of their shots with this, so it makes it much better. The GMR, as mentioned, just really good high damage. It's just a good assault rifle to throw on here. Wombo combo can work really well here too because the Wombo combo just, if you're fighting against vile enemies, it can explode them really easily. I'm also a fan of the Convergence. If you can find one without elemental damage, it's really great, especially with the Jacob's License accessory. And what's funny is the Golden God, our minion can actually keep shooting this almost infinitely because whenever it overheats, it continually just eats through your ammo and the minion doesn't use ammo. As for purples, there's actually a few really good ones. The Brewery SMG is going to be great. The Stellium shotgun here, which the Jacob's License accessory will actually chain around multiple enemies and do a pretty good amount of damage too. So this can be a fun one on top of this. Now I tested Katagawa's Revenge, which I really like, but it'll only use the fire version of this instead of the shock, which makes it a lot worse. But the complex root actually works very well in this build because it will only use the first elemental damage type that's listed there. So this one's cryo, but it does actually hit the enemy quite a bit. And if you get one with the Jacob's License accessory, it can also chain around to the enemies that are nearby. And lastly, the Rainbow Vomit is great too because this can give you a ton of statuses. And with our skill here, if this ends up working properly, the Prismatic Ichor will also apply statuses really quickly in a variety of different ones. Now, as for our specializations, the best defense, since we got that crazy life steal, this will give us 30% damage when our health is full. Huge. We also got the Now with Caffeine, which whenever we use our Repkit, we get our action skill back 25%. The really with this adds 50% extra gun damage when we fire a gun, and we can use some fast firing ones to get that huge boost to our damage. And what's kind of funny is the Groundbreaker kind of works here, so non-melee attack damage and slam damage is stored, and you can do melee attacks to basically shred through the boss health bar. It's pretty powerful, but it probably will get nerfed. And alternatively, you can take off the best defense and throw on the I am a gun. Action skill damage will get benefits from gun damage. So every boost to our gun damage actually applies to our minions as they're considered action skill damage. They're also considered skill damage, so anything that can boost that. And then the Honed Mind gives you a critical hit chance and increased critical hit damage on our action skill, which is our minions. And all we got to do is then spawn in our Spectre and let it do its thing. So it'll mark the boss when it first comes in there. That's the very first thing that's doing. It gets that critical hit chance. It can wipe itself out though, so you have to be mindful. And with our specialization there, it can actually critically hit, as you can see, without even having to use a critical hit knife. Give them a huge boost to their damage, although they do sometimes take themselves out a little bit quicker. If you got the critical hit knife, you can obviously accelerate that quite a bit, because then it just chains around and wipes the enemy out really fast. And again, just gotta summon it in. Now we're gonna use the TK's Wave, which normally is not gonna get used that much in the game, but she can, the Spectres can actually shoot with them pretty effectively. She's just going after the mobs over there, but yeah, you can get some pretty nuts damage in with this, especially if she's able to get some critical hits off. You saw they're melted. And we'll do it again. So with a gun like the Complex Root here, we can actually do some pretty nuts damage because it's gonna chain around multiple times, hitting the enemy. It's actually kind of nuts in this build. We'll try that again there. The Complex Root does chain around multiple times. You can see there, it's great if you're able to get a multitude of enemies around it. But you see there, it does high damage. The critical hit knife obviously amplifies that greatly, but that is a crazy build for Vex in Borderlands 4, utilizing a skill tree that I did not see anyone else use. I tried to look for builds just to see, because I was curious if Spectres could do anything. I didn't see any information there, so I did a lot of testing in the past few hours, and this is one of my favorite new builds, because it's using something that just seemed untraditional, but there's a lot of cool ways you can go about doing this. Let me know which weapons you like to use best with this build if you're going to try it out, and hit the subscribe button below if you enjoyed this video. We'll catch y'all in the next one.